Now, shall we begin?
The one thing they love more than a hero is to see a hero fail, fall, die trying. In spite of everything you've done for them, eventually they will hate you.
Greetings, Autobots and Predacons! Welcome to the third episode of the original 2001 Robots in Disguise. I'm afraid there's not really that much to say about this episode. It largely focuses on a futuristic train, supposedly the fastest and safest ever built by humans, which of course means it's colored a bright pale pink, because nothing says futuristic like a salmon-colored phallic object. Koji is of course riding in this train because of course he is, and the whole setup is really just an excuse to introduce the newest three toys. The Autobot trains, or the Team Bullet Train. The episode starts off with Sky-Byte being firmly established as Megatron's second in command now. Two of the Predacon stooges, Gasgunk and Slapper, are engaged in training runs, if you'll excuse the pun, in which they are destroying various trains. All of them unmanned, of course, so that there's no human fatalities in our kids show. Despite both of them wanting to impress Sky-Byte, Sky-Byte is actually observing them and is not impressed, and neither of the two Predacons seem to really care, which is a bit confusing. Darkscream is the only one of the three not engaged in any kind of training exercise, and we actually don't see him for the earlier part of the episode. The Autobots suspect the Predacons are going to attack the futuristic train. We're not really given a reason why the Predacons are going to attack it. Optimus kind of gives off one line about them seeking power, but the train doesn't seem to really have any power, nor are the Predacons interested in capturing it. Slapper and Gasgunk end up setting up a bomb on a bridge that the train will go over. Indeed, they don't seem interested in capturing the train, simply in blowing it up, because they're evil. Now, Optimus' hunch, of course, has paid off, and he and the Autobot brothers do move to intercept them. And the four of them are easily able to deal with Gasgunk and Slapper, although they have arrived after the bomb has already been attached to the bridge, and they actually don't know that the bomb is there. They simply think, Slapper and Gasgunk are going to attack the train or whatever. And this is actually a rare bit of competence on the Predacon side. They have successfully attached the bomb, and they don't give away their plan, which is normally what would happen with these type of buffoonish villains. Now, the train, as part of the safest ever built, actually runs on a two-part control system. It does have a regular cockpit, or whatever you call the driver's seat in a train, with at least a three-man crew to run it. But there's also a remote control for the train run back at the train station. And either the people at the train station can control the train, or the crew can control the train. Now, Darkscream, it's revealed, has actually been sabotaging the train station. He destroys their control center, or their radar dishes. Again, doesn't actually hurt any humans, it's just the electrical equipment. But he blows this up without even the Autobots being aware that he's done it. Again, like I said, a good bit of competency on the part of the Predacons. He rendezvous with Sky-Byte, who's flying around in the air despite not being in his vehicle mode, because although Sky-Byte the toy has the vehicle mode, leftover mode from Cybershark, because he's a repaint of the Beast War Transmel 2 Cybershark. He retains the flying ability, but in the show never actually transforms to the flight mode. He simply swims through the air. The two of them link back up with Gasgunk and Slapper at the bridge, where they engage in basically a four-way fight between the four Predacons and the four Autobots, being Optimus Prime and the Autobot brothers. But while Prime and the Autobot brothers are dealing with the Predacons, Optimus has called in for more backup. And given that they're dealing with a train, Ty, the Autobot computer, pulls up Team Bullet Train, which are three additional Autobots that are all bullet trains. Now, I'm not quite sure if these are the very first bullet train Transformers in the Transformer, franchise. They're not the first train bots. There have been previous train bots. Of course, most notable is the triple changer Astro Train. But Astro Train, at the time that Robots in Disguise came out back in 2001, the only model that ever been made for him had him turn into the old locomotives engine, the coal-powered, traditional train, back when the steam engine was king, and before the combustion engine. So I'm not 100% familiar with all the train robots at the time. I do know there were other train robots, and Japan actually loved train robots. They had, in their own exclusive series, they had, I want to say, 3 different teams of train robots. And that's just counting Transformers. Keep in mind, other series like the Sentai, their version of Power Rangers, also had train things, and other shows had train robots and the like. It wasn't just Transformers, but it was a huge thing at one point. Less so nowadays, I think. Perhaps they finally burned out on it. But, so I'm not 100% sure if these are the first bullet trains in Transformers or not. They're certainly the first that I was ever exposed to. And usually their train teams are like 6 different Transformers. So curiously, the Robots in Disguise group is half that number. It's just the 3 of them. Rail Spike, the oldest and the leader. Rapid Run, and Midnight Express, who in the American dub is actually loosely modeled off of C-3PO in his personality and the way he speaks. In Japan, he was actually treated as a sort of the kid member of the group, and was very young and not very bright, as is typical in these sort of kid cartoons. Anyway, the bullet trains are called in to stop the train, which for some reason, brakes have failed completely, and the train is accelerating. This is not explained. The crew on the train has lost control, and we're never told why, at least not in the American dub. The bullet trains handle this fairly simply. They jump. Well, an interesting effect with the bullet trains is that they do actually need tracks to drive around on. They can't drive on a road or off-road like the Autobot brothers and Optimus can. They require an actual train track. However, perhaps via space bridge technology, they're actually able to generate tracks wherever they go. Literally ahead of them, tracks will materialize, solid light hologram style, and then will dematerialize behind them, effectively allowing them to travel wherever they want. So using their own personal tracks, they're able to drive up alongside the futuristic linear one or train, whatever they called it. And then they're able to, because again, they're futuristic Cybertronian alien robots, jump from their own tracks onto the track that the human train is on. 1 in the front of it and 2 behind it, which you would have thought they would have done it the other way around, but regardless. They then link up with the train, essentially forming a 4-component train. Interestingly, the toys of the bullet trains actually can link up into one single train. I mean, it doesn't technically have any cars, it's 4 train engines, but you can actually link them all up. And now, linked up as one train, the 3 bullet trains, the 3 Autobot ones, then apply their brakes to slow the train down. Now, back at the battle at the bridge, the Predacons see the train coming, and they actually abandon the fight, with initially Optimus thinking that he and the Autobots have the upper hand, but Sky-Byte actually has Darkscream blow the bridge.
Move in, let's go. You're too late to stop us. Everything is in place. Blow the bridge. Right. Goodbye, Optimus Prime. Enjoy the show. What? Get back!
And Darkscream does it, and the bridge is destroyed. Like I said, this is actually one of the most competent plans that the Predacons have ever hatched, and it shows Sky-Byte really back in his prime, before he became much more of a running joke in the series. That as far as his plan has gone, he's actually pulled it off. Everything he wanted to do, he has done. He wasn't actually prevented. However, Sky-Byte had not anticipated the bullet trains. Quite probably didn't know they existed. Koji did not even know they existed until they showed up here, and is quite surprised to learn that they're Autobots. Also consider they're a bit different than the other Autobots. Optimus and the Autobot brothers are all automobiles, hence where the name Autobot even comes from. The bullet trains are not automobiles, though. They're trains. So they are a little bit different. Not quite as different as the Predacons, who are giant cyborg animals, but still They actually could have, in their own way, been almost a third faction if you took the Autobot name very literally. However, even the original series in the 80s didn't take Autobot that literally. You had plenty of Autobots that were not, in fact, automobiles. So, with Optimus's help, he actually now transforms into battle mode, as he refers to it, which one wonders why he wasn't using that to battle earlier and is using it now when he's not battling. But, using his armor, he becomes larger and heavier, and he stands in front of the train, Superman style, catching, I think it's Rapid Run, who was the one train in the front and the other two behind. And all four of them, the three bullet trains and Optimus, managed to slow the Linear 1 futuristic train enough so that they don't all go over the bridge. Thus, they do foil Sky-Byte's plan. But, again, not because he actually failed to do any of his, not because he actually failed or was thwarted in any of his plans. He actually did pull off his plan, it just ended up being unsuccessful. And interestingly enough, Sky-Byte and his Predacons do not retreat. They actually decide, well, the train is stuck right here, let's, attack. And so they initiate a fight. So they are about to initiate the fight, and Megatron now shows up. And we actually learn that this is an unauthorized plan, that Megatron didn't even know what was. Apparently, he's been out searching for them. That's why I didn't use the radio, but whatever. And perhaps this explains why it was so successful, because it wasn't a Megatron plan. Perhaps it's Megatron is the reason they keep failing. But he joins the fight. And so now the 5 Predacons outnumber the 4 Autobots. Even with Optimus in his battle mode, they actually gain the upper hand. However, the bullet trains have not actually left the area. They've simply been towing, if you will, the Linear 1 train back away from the bridge, and making sure the humans, of course, didn't, get involved in the fight. Once the train is safely far enough away, they all jump back onto their own personal rails and return to the bridge site, where they then proceed to transform for the first time in this episode, here like in the last 5 minutes practically, and then initiate a triple attack on Megatron, who simply swats all the 3 attacks aside, a very anime style. Because you can totally use a sword to swat away missiles, even if you aren't a giant alien robot. Now, despite the fact the Autobots now outnumber the Predacons by 2, the bullet trains decide that they need extra firepower for this, and they immediately combine.
Let's do it! Bullet fusion mode! Triple power! Railracer!
Personally, I think they should have waited an episode to do this and given us a better chance to get familiar with the 3 independent trains and actually show them off as, cool and powerful. Whereas here, individually, they didn't really do that much. It wasn't really all that impressive stopping the Linear 1. And then when they show up in their own robot modes, they are ineffective. And it's nice to have a little build-up and somewhere. How are you going to top the bullet trains now? They've already combined, and here's them at their peak. Nonetheless, it is a cool scene. I have to admit that Railracer, their combined form, is one of my favorite combiners. Probably helped by the fact that he looks like a single robot. Because after all 3 of the bullet trains, as the name implies, they turn into the same thing. Bullet trains. Now, they're not 3 identical bullet trains, but they still are all 3 the same type of vehicle. So when they're combined together, all you see is train components, as if Railracer transformed into a single giant train, which theoretically, if you want to look at the 3 bullet trains' ability to link up into one train, he kind of technically does. The bullet trains are also all colored very similarly. They're not identical, but they all have a very similar color scheme. Rail Spike and Midnight Express are both largely light gray color with a lot of blue. Rapid Run is a darker gray, but he's still gray, and again, it has a sort of darker blue or black, depending on what version you might have. But still, it's a very similar color. And Rapid Run also forms the least part of the combiner. Midnight Express forms the waist down, and the legs, the pelvis, the hips, the feet. And Rail Spike forms the chest and the arms and the head. Rapid Run actually only forms the stomach and kind of a backpack. So visually, the Railracer has a has a very cohesive aesthetic, as well as a fairly cool looking, as well as a cool name. He also, I think, is the fastest of the Autobots, even faster than Sideburn, as he's able to use his speed to dazzle Megatron and then take him out with a melee punch. Now, despite having only been knocked over, naturally this means Megatron must flee. Two of the Predacons are blasted straight out, Slapper and Gasskunk, and then Megatron, Darkscream, and Sky-Byte, the three capable of flight, all fly away. And the cartoon ends with the crew apparently having gotten Linear 1 back under control, again no explanation, and the three bullet trains driving off into the sunset. Now, there are a couple of differences with this episode from the original Car Robots version, but most of them are fairly minor. In Car Robots, Sky-Byte wants to destroy the Linear train simply to show the power of Predacons to humanity, whereas Robots in Disguise does kind of imply that they're looking for a power source, although exactly what power source Linear has isn't really mentioned. Also, it's interesting here is Optimus actually as I skipped over before, Optimus actually contacts a train station, asking them to stop the train. And while one of the engineers there didn't recognize them, everyone else seems to know who Optimus Prime is.
I'm sorry to intrude, gentlemen, but we have an emergency situation on our hands.
Who's that robot? It's Optimus Prime, the leader of the Autobots.
Which again, if the whole concept is robots in disguise, literally, them living among humanity and hidden, why do all the humans know who they are? In fact, that is what the three bullet trains are even doing prior to Ty contacting them. The three trains are all doing, commuter hauls and the like. And they actually all three have to abandon their passengers. Naturally, one of which, of course, is Kelly, who decided to skip the driving to work for once and take a train, only to be stranded inside a tunnel. In one of the combat scenes, the Car Robots has a very odd animation in which Optimus is supposed to be using his Blizzard Storm attack, but the animation is very odd, and it's not clear if that's what's really happening. So when Robots in Disguise was made, they actually removed that scene and instead inserted some stock footage of Sideburn's transformation, in which a red light flares from his eyes. This is used as a one-time, I believe, unique attack called Optical Laser Strike.
Optical Laser Strike!
In which Sideburn attacks instead of Optimus. Like I said, I don't believe he ever does this again, but this was simply because the original attack animation for Optimus was just so terrible. You can also see one of the times in the same episode, Sky-Byte's mouth is not colored. The tongue is white, the back of the mouth is white, and the fangs are white. Yet in one scene, we are given a close-up after just having a previous close-up where, again, his mouth was completely white. Still drawn with the teeth and the tongue, but just all white. And this, just like 5 minutes later, we're shown another close-up where the inside of his mouth actually is colored. He's got kind of a purplish, light purple tongue and a dark purple back for the mouth, and then white fangs. Like I said, Robots in Disguise is kind of inconsistent here. Usually, for some reason, they never color his mouth, but then at odd times they will. And also, we have in this series that very Japanese way of announcing your attack and naming whatever it is, even if it's something completely normal that everyone can do. Railracer's Super Turbo Punch consists of punching his opponent in the face. Yes, he has a name for this move. Overall, I would rate this episode as actually pretty boring. This is the first time we see a combiner in the series, which definitely became a staple. Basically, Robots in Disguise revitalized the combiner concept, which had generally gone unused in Transformers until now. Like I said before, they introduced it the same episode they introduced the bullet trains themselves, which is interesting to note, as Megatron has still not used his final 6th mode. And by the 3rd episode now, we've only seen 5 of his modes, 3 of which he uses in this episode: Dragon Mode, Jet Mode, and Robot Mode. So I do find it interesting that they're holding off revealing Megatron's final 6th mode, but jump straight to showing us that the bullet trains combine. Regardless, I don't really have much more to say about this episode. It's pretty straightforward, and really, other than this is the first combiners that we see here, nothing really too interesting or significant happens in this episode. So I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please feel free to like, subscribe, share, and comment. And if you did not enjoy the episode, well, thanks for listening this long at least. Until next time, thanks for listening.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shore of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the darkness.